Kia ora koutou, nau mai, and welcome to the Science Learning Hub and our webinar today, Picturebooks for Matariki. It is absolutely lovely to have you along. We're going to get started and we're going to go at a reasonable pace today because we have lots of information to share with you. Our guest today, we have the Associate Professor Nicola Daly with us, and it is an absolute delight to have you back. We did a webinar together a while ago looking at science and picture books, and it was just fantastic, and I'm so pleased that we've managed to have another one with you.
Well, thanks very much for having me, Greta. It's my pleasure to be back. Te tuatahi e mihi ana ki te kaihanga. Te tuarua e mihi ana ki tō tātou kingi tu heitia, hei pou herenga waka, te pou herenga tangata me te kahui ariki nui tonu, pai marire. Te tuatoru e mihi ana ki te kaiwhakahaere o tēnei hui ki a koe, Greta, ki a Pokapu o Akuranga Putaia, the Science Learning Hub. I ngā mana, i ngā reo, i ngā wheta o Matariki, i ngā rangatira mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. No ingarangi tōku whānau, engari e tipu ana ahau ki kirikiri roa, mai i ngā waru o kūtau. E tipu ana ahau i te rohe o tainui, no reira ko Waikato te awa, o taupiri te maunga ko tainui te iwi. E mahi ana ahau i te wharewananga o Waikato, he kairanga hau i ngā pukapuka pikitia reo rua. He tino whakapono māku ka tautoko i te reo Māori ngā pukapuka pikitia reo rua. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa, me inoi tātou, Greta.
Tuia i runga, tuia i raro, tuia te ere tangata i a nuku āra, kia puanga kairau, kia matariki a unga nui. Tō matatini me pā ki roto, tō matatini me pā ki wao, kia ora i a te kura, e kura nui, e kura roa, e kura takatū, mai a rongo take. Ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ā, ka rongo i te a i kāro, i tuārangi te waka eke nei. Ka waka eke te aukai kia tina, ka waka eke te aukai kia toka, ka waka eke te aukai kia uru ora. Witi, wano, tau mai te mauri, aungi e, ui e, tāiki e.
Thanks for that, Greta. And it's a really great karakia. I know that my sound isn't great, so I'm going to make sure I sit close to my computer and speak slowly. But I know you will have seen the words for the karakia we just had, which was specifically for Matariki and could be used in your classrooms. So I want to start by acknowledging Matariki in the Waikato, because of course, beliefs and ideas about Matariki vary between hapu and iwi, and this particular image is Te Paki or Matariki, the fine weather of Matariki, and it's the coat of arms of the Kingi movement. It was designed by T.Y. Parane of Hauraki and Te Ao Katoa of Waikato and Ngāti Raukawa. And the central double helix in the middle there represents the creation of the world. And on the left is the figure of Aitua, or misfortune. And on the right, Te Ataua Tanga, spirituality. Stars above are Matariki, and a Christian cross can also be seen. This carving of the coat of arms is on the door of Mahinarangi, the meeting house at Turanawaiwai, the seat of King Tuheitia. Today, we're going to have three parts to what we're doing, and Greta and I are going to kind of be in a counterpoint, really. I'm going to be talking about picture books. That's my thing, picture books. Picture books that include Māori and English are the thing that I love to research. And Greta's going to be interspersing me talking about the picture books with links to lots of interesting resources around Matariki as a science subject. So the first part, we're looking at what is a picture book and why I'm interested in bilingual books very briefly. Second is actually looking specifically at picture books about Matariki and how they use Te Reo Māori and English. And I think how they use Te Reo Māori and English is kind of a reflection of the integration of Mātauranga Māori in the books. And in part 3, a wero and a time for questions and a final karakia. So let's keep going. What is a picture book? That seems like such an obvious question. Have a think for a moment. Here's some definitions that I like to use because I think they give us a sense of the complexity of what a picture book is. A picture book, unlike an illustrated book, is properly conceived of as a unit. The images and the text are written to go together. It's a totality that integrates all the parts. And the cover, the end paper, the typography, the pictures, they're all crucial to understanding the book. And here another definition that I think really touches on picture books as a social, cultural, and historical document. They tell us things about the people who write them, the time they're written in, and changing attitudes along those times. And that's partially what I'm hooking into today, because I think the way Te Reo Māori is used in these books reflects a changing attitudes towards Te Reo Māori, but also alongside that, attitudes towards Mātauranga Māori. So why I'm interested in picture books, it began when I went to Britain and discovered the European Picture Book Collection. The image for it is on the left there, established in 1996 with 20 picture books to introduce children to learn about other countries in the European Union. Of course, this was done in England, and of course they're no longer part of the European Union, but in 2009 it was revised with a focus on using picture books to teach languages. And the New Zealand Picture Book Collection was worked on by me and some colleagues who tried to identify 22 picture books that reflect different aspects of New Zealand national identity, really. And the idea was that actually, because we produce lots of beautiful picture books in New Zealand, but they're always a small fraction of what's available in a library. And it's really important that children see and hear themselves in the books they read. It's really important they see other people too. But in New Zealand, children mostly see other places that snow in winter, places, well, actually we all snow at winter. Sorry, the places that have snow at Christmas, that kind of thing, that people, we often see those. We don't see as much of ourselves, and it's really important for New Zealand children to see themselves. So that was partly the motivation for putting the picture book collection together. I had 6 meetings with teachers and librarians, and we chose 22 picture books, and Greta's given you the link there. There are activities linked to the New Zealand curriculum for each of the books. When we looked at the books and perhaps why we'd chosen them, there were 5 themes that came out. There were representations of family, there were representations of New Zealand environment, there were representations of tikanga Māori, there was representations of diversity in lots of ways, in terms of family construction, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of gender, but there was a lot of diversity in language use. And language was the thing that I hooked in on to do much more research about. If you see the 2 books on the side at the moment, on the left is The Kuia and the Spider, written by Patricia Grace, illustrated by Robin Kahukiwa, first published in 1982, very ahead of its time. And there's a sentence from that book. The Kuia made mats to sit on, mats to sleep on. She made kits for kumara and kits for seafood. In Haere, Farewell, Jack, Farewell, written in 2005, there's no glossary, and in the 3 sentences just there are 5 words used. In the Kuia and Spider, there are 6 words used throughout the whole book, and there is a glossary provided at the end. So there's quite a big shift between attitudes to Te Reo Māori and assumptions about who will understand what and who the readers might be. And that's kind of at the crux of what I'm interested in. Some books tell stories in mostly one language mostly in English with words from Māori woven into them, and I know those as translingual books. I saw whānau I hadn't seen in ages. Even my sister, who is hapu, that's an example of a translingual text. There are stories that are completely told in both languages all the way through, like Hei te pēhea koe. So on the left-hand side, you see an example from the page, Kei te wera au, I feel hot. Stories told completely in Māori and English. And then multiple versions of books. In this case, these two versions of The Bomb or Te Pōhu were written at the same time, published at the same time, one version totally in English, one version totally in Māori. So there's lots of ways in which Māori and English are used in children's books in Aotearoa. So there you go. That's a bit of the background to what a picture book is and why I'm interested in them. Here, moving on to part 2 here, we're going to start actually looking at the books. And this is the part where Greta and I will start weaving between ourselves, if you like. So when I looked at the picture books that are available in about Matariki, they seem to fall into 3 areas. There's ones which involve anthropomorphism. So that's when you have animals acting like they're human. They talk to you, they talk to each other as if they're human.
That's
so
a great
little Kiwis, yeah, it's a great word. Little Kiwis Matariki is an example of that. Then there are books that are sort of about contemporary families, such as Matariki by Sharon Holt in the middle, and then traditional stories of Matariki, telling the myths and legends associated with Matariki, like The 7 Stars of Matariki by Tony Rolliston.
There were some of these that I were familiar with, and then some I weren't.
These are the 7 books I'm going to go through and talk about how Te Reo Māori is incorporated into the English and how it changes over time. And in between me talking about those books, Greta's going to give you links to some great resources. So let's move on. Way ahead of its time was Matariki by Melanie Drury and Bruce Potter, published by Penguin in 2003. So, you know, this is 20 years ago. There are 7 words used throughout this book, 7 Māori words woven into the English. And then there's one phrase at the end, Te rohia atu nei ka whetū rangitia Matariki te whetū o te tau. Behold, Matariki, the star of the year, has made its appearance. What's interesting about this book is its translanguaging, we say, the words woven in, but none of the tohuto or the macrons are used on the Māori words at all. And back in 2003, that was probably the more common thing to happen when words were borrowed from Māori and put into English texts. This is a story of a family, a contemporary family, going down to the beach to see Matariki rising as a family. They cook food together and they tell stories of people who've died.
The beautiful story, that one. And we, when we worked together last time, Nicola and I looked at work by Melanie as well. It's my turn now to talk science and to think. And after I read this book, around Matariki, it made me think of that really that as a really lovely place to start and talk about what is Matariki, what do we already know as a class. And on the Science Learning Hub, we have an article that is just like a really nice introduction to Matariki, gives you a bit of the background, the science, links to some of the mātauranga associated with it. And yeah, if you're just wondering where to start, this would be my suggestion on where you go. We also have quite simple resources too that you can pick up straight away and use. And this one is around looking at the different names for the different stars. Now, at this point, I do want to acknowledge that there will be different kupu Māori, different narratives and understandings from all around Aotearoa. Where most of the work that we have currently on the Science Learning Hub is based on the work of Professor Rangan Matamua, but also, he also acknowledges that there is much more than what he shares from his background. And very quickly in the book, they talk about going and seeing Matariki, and I wanted to share this resource, which is called Stellarium. You can use it on an app or on your laptop, computer, and it allows you to explore the night sky. And in this case, I've been able to put in the date, it is New Zealand's public holiday for Matariki, into Stellarium, and it shows me what it would look like, and I can position myself, you know, between the north and the east. I should be able to see Matariki, and it gives me the timing for that.
Thanks, Greta. The next book we're looking at is in 2008, 5 years after Matariki by Melanie Drury. It's written by Tony Rolleston Cummins and illustrated by Nikki Slade. And this comes into the traditional stories. I remember I mentioned there were 3 different kinds of Matariki stories that I found in the picture books. The previous one was about a contemporary family going to view Matariki. This one is the story of Matariki. An adventurous man called Mitai lives with his 7 handsome brothers in the village of Maketu. So this is a story from that part of Aotearoa. He watches his brothers become bewitched by 7 beautiful women and under their spell, and the brothers no longer eat or look after themselves. He realizes that the women are patupaia, and he knows that he's got to let them know. So they are thrown up into the sky and become Matariki. And once a year, it's winter solstice, he allows their beauty to shine in the sky. Not Uru Tengana lets them shine at that time. Here we have a lot of Māori words used in the text, as you can see on the slide there. We see tohu being used. So 5 years later, we're now in a time when it's more common to respect the Māori language by using tohu to indicate long vowels on the Māori words that are used in English. There's a YouTube clip there if you want to hear the book being read. Interestingly, this book has a glossary, but not all of the words, as you see on the previous slide, that are there are in the glossary. Some of the words are. So there's a judgment made on which words are needed to be glossed.
Kia ora. Reading this book really made me think about the different characteristics of the main fitu, or stars, that get talked about in Matariki, acknowledging there are many stars in the star cluster, but there are some beautiful resources that have come out and we've developed alongside the Ministry for the Environment. And what they do is they have these gorgeous pictures and whakatoki connected to each of the stars, and then talks about the environment that those stars are connected to. So there's an example there, tupuarangi, and talking about everything that grows above the earth. And so I think this would be a really lovely resource if you're reading that book and thinking about the different stars to explore.
Thanks, Greta. So the third book, Whare, picture book, I want to share with you is written by the illustrator of the previous book, Little Kiwi's Matariki. It won a lot of awards, and this is an example of anthropomorphism where we have little Kiwi talking to Ruru and Tui and Katipo. They're all talking to each other as if they're human. This gentle tale celebrates Matariki and shows the animals rushing to go and view it. Kiwi says something's coming, and he tells all his friends, and they go to the beach and they watch Matariki rising. Again, we have a translingual text going on here, English mostly with Māori words put in, but this time, instead of there being a glossary, we have the use of what's called in-text glossing. So that's my puku tiare, my empty tummy. So within the sentence of the book, it tells the reader the Māori phrase and then the English phrase to just make sure everybody knows what's happening here. Kia tūpato, be careful, little Kiwi. That's just Tawhiri Mate, God of the Wind, and you see all the tohu are in there. So this is another example now at 2016 of a Matariki book, and all of these came before Matariki was made part of our national holidays. And you can see how these, I gave you a definition before of picture books being cultural kind of artifacts, and these show you the coming of something. You know, they're in the picture books and scene before they come into the wider public consciousness, if you like.
I really enjoyed this book for the sense of kind of anticipation and excitement building. And it made me really think about that focus on observation, the science capabilities. And that made me think of this particular resource. It's a connected article called Listening to the Land, and it features Pauline Harris, who has done a huge amount of work with Māori astronomy, and who we feature in numerous different resources on the Science Learning Hub. This particular article really focuses on that observation of what's happening in the environment, the different things that happen in different seasons. And there is a really beautiful image in there that has, I sort of hints of what are happening at different times of the year that would be beautiful to explore with your students. We also have, as well as this, there's another article that talks about Māori ways of knowing around weather and climate and links to the impacts of climate change on iwi. So that might be another one, particularly if you've got older students, that you might want to explore with them.
Moving on to the fourth book, published in 2018 now, so we're moving 2 years ahead from the last one. This one written by Miriama Kamo, who you may know as a TV journalist and presenter, and Zach Waipara is the illustrator. And there's a wonderful YouTube clip here of Miriama Kamo reading this book with the NZSO playing behind her. I really encourage you to share this with your classrooms. It's just beautiful.
The Stolen Stars of Matariki, written by me, Miriama Kamo, and illustrated by Zach Waipara. Behind dusty orange hills, where the sky stretches down to the sea, there's a magical, wild, windy place called Te Matahapuku. Some people call it Birdling's Flat. Te Rerehua and Sam often stay at Te Matahapuku with their grandma and Paua. Te Matahapuku Beach isn't sandy or shelly. Te Matahapuku Beach is stony. It's made of trillions upon trillions of grey stones. There are as many stones on Te Matahapuku Beach as there are stars in the sky. Te Rerehua and Sam love to search there for special stones called agate. They're tricky to find, but worth it. Unlike the grey stones, agate gleams bright white. If you hold it up to the light, it's as if you can see right through it. At night, the two children dress warmly and go eeling with Grandma and Paua. Paua uses his torch and gaff to catch the eels. Grandma lies on the stones with Sam and Te Rerehua. They look up at the sky, bursting with stars. As Paua's gaff splashes into the water and the wind whips about their cheeks, Grandma tells the children stories. One night, as they watched the moon slip behind the wispy night clouds, something caught Grandma's eye. "Pai kare," she exclaimed. "What's happened to Matariki? There are normally 9 stars, but tonight I see only 7. What's happened to Pohutukawa and Hiwa i Te Rangi?" Sam and Te Rerehua scanned the night sky. Grandma was right. There were 2 stars missing from the Matariki cluster. "Oh dear, I know what's happened," said Grandma. What, Te Rerehua asked breathlessly. "It's those blimmin' patupaerehe that live up in the hills. They've been stealing the stars again." "Stealing the stars?" Sam looked doubtful. Grandma pulled the children in close. "You know how you go searching for agate? Well, they're special because they're tiny pieces of star. The patupaerehe steal the stars and hide them among the grey stones of Te Matahapuku. That's why they're so hard to find." Just then, they heard giggling and laughing. Without making a sound, Grandma and the children picked their way up the stony bank. Peering over the top, they couldn't believe their eyes. Down at the water's edge was a group of patupaerehe. They were dancing about, and oh, how they danced. And inside their rope or net lay 2 glowing rocks. "Oh, Whare! They've captured Pohutukawa and Hiwa i Te Rangi," whispered whispered Grandma. Without those 2 stars, it'll be hard to know when it's time to stop healing and rest for winter. Sam and Te Rerehua looked at her with alarm. What shall we do, Grandma? Well, Patupaerehe don't like sunlight. It burns their delicate white skin, Grandma began. Te Rerehua gasped, "Oh, I know what to do. You wait here, Grandma. Haere taua, Sam." Te Rerehua and Sam slipped in among the Patupaerehe. Because the children were small and fair-haired, the naughty Patupaerehe assumed they were also fairy people. "Can we help?" Te Rerehua asked. One of the Patupaerehe giggled. "We're going to hide these 2 stars under the stones. Then they'll break up into smaller pieces and we'll use them to make our kākahu." "You make your clothes from the stars?" exclaimed Sam. "Yes," the impish Patupaerehe crowed as they twirled about in their glittering korowai. "We can help. Just tell us how," said Te Rerehua. Full of self-importance, the Patupaerehe all began talking at once, boasting about their techniques, how they cast their nets high into the sky to catch the perfect stars, and how they pull them down to earth. They told how the stones were ground down and how they would weave them into hamikoti, korowai, and tipare. They skited for so long, they did not notice the glow of the sun peeping over the horizon. "Oh, look," said Sam casually. "It's nearly daytime." The Patupaerehe shrieked, "The sun, the sun! Oma, oma!" Te Rerehua grinned. Her plan had worked. The fairies ran for the hills, leaving the 2 glowing stars, Pohutukawa and Hiwa Iterangi, behind on the beach. "Grandma Poa," Te Rerehua called. Grandma and Poa were very pleased with Sam and Te Rerehua. "Ka pai tō korua mahi," they said. "Good work, you 2. "But what do we do now?" Te Rerehua asked. Grandma looked fondly at Poa. He knew just what to do. Poa hooked Pohutukawa with his gap. "Stand back," he said to the children. Poa heaved Pohutukawa high into the sky. The star made a shining arc across the dawn sky as she bumped into the other stars, then took her place. Poa did the same for Hiwa Iterangi. As the sun began to rise over the ocean, the 2 sister stars twinkled happily. Sam and Te Rerehua waved back. The 9 stars of Matariki were back together again. Grandma, Te Rerehua and Sam helped Poa carry a sack of newly caught eels home. The sun would dry the eels nicely on the rag. It was going to be a great day.
The way that the Māori words are woven into the English text in this book are different again. So we've got Paua, which is a dialectal name for karaua, grandfather, in some mita. We have Te Mata Hapuku for a place in Canterbury that's also known as Birdling's Flat, Patupaerehe, Haere Taua. And what happens in this book is they use footnotes to tell you what the word means in English. So you don't have to flip to the back for a glossary. At the bottom of the page, you can just look down and see. If you don't understand the Māori, you can see what it means in English. Yeah, so another technique of integrating Māori into the English text.
This slide here is showing it's an interactive resource. Each of these different kupu are linked to resources on them, and it is all about mahinga kai, so around these resources that are used to sustain life, and and so much. There's lots to learn around mahinga kai. what I feel is really special about these is they link to Kaitahu, Ngaitahu's work, and these beautiful videos that they've created. And there is one looking at tuna that is actually based around the same area that is spoken about in the Stolen Stars of Matariki. So that would be a really lovely connection if you were using this picture book in your classroom and wanting to explore more. You could share this interactive or share the video that's in there, showing those traditional and also still used techniques for harvesting our tuna.
The next book, also in 2018, is by Sharon Holt and Deborah Hind, both from the Waikato region. So I'm very pleased to feature these, given where I'm situated. In this book, the English and Māori are done in a very different way to the previous books. Māori is the main text giving the story, which is also lyrics for a song that's either you can find online or as a CD. And English is just given at the beginning of the book to guide you through. So the main thing is reading the book in Māori, listening to the CD, the song being played on the CD or online. The body text is in Te Reo Māori only with tohuto all in place. And there's a video online that introduces a third language. So this is a trilingual book, and the third language is New Zealand Sign Language. So here we have another way of integrating several languages into one story about Matariki. In this case, a story of many families, all talking about things that they love at Matariki time.
I imagine a lot of teachers will be familiar with Sharon Holt's work. She does a lot of Te Reo Māori books and has the support behind it too to help you with pronunciation. Yeah, I think it's a really lovely way to explore Matariki and to encourage our students to be sharing their ideas. I thought it was I listened to the song, and it made me sort of imagine creating the space in your classroom where you've got the song going in the background, and you've given students an opportunity to think of hiwa, which is sometimes known as our wishing star. And it might provide that opportunity for our students to reflect and to think about what are some of their wishes. Now, we've got some resources that I spoke about earlier from the Ministry for the Environment that talk about wishes that we might have or aspirations for our environment, and that might be a direction that you want to go in, thinking about what's local and what might need looking after, what might need us to be sort of thinking about it and hoping and taking action. On the next slide, I've got a video there that features Dr. Pauline Harris, who I spoke about earlier, and we've got a few that feature her. This one here, Tātai Arorangi, which is Māori astronomy, gives you a really lovely overview and speaks to also that sort of that sense of aspiration, that revival, and some of the wonderful things that are happening in that area. It's really amazing. There is, if you're not familiar with it, the organisation that Pauline works with, along with Rangi Matamoa and many others, is called SMART, and they have lots of resources as well in terms of the research behind what they're doing and what they're sharing with people for Matariki.
Okay, so I think we're up to the fifth book, talking this time in 2019 from Bateman Books by Rebecca Larson, based on the well-known song Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. This is called Tirama, Tirama Matariki, Twinkle, Twinkle Matariki, and it gives its text bilingually, so in English and Māori. English and Māori are given on every page in the same sized font and the same sized and the same coloured font. English is usually to the left and Māori to the right, and in some places English is on top and Māori is underneath. But interestingly, in the labels on illustrations, Māori is always first, and sometimes it's Māori only for numbers and colours. So a different way again of presenting the two languages. The tohuto are all in place. So ever since that first book in 2003, the tohuto have been in place. That's very definitely ingrained in the way that we publish bilingual books these days. In this story, this is another example of anthropomorphism, where we've got characters, birds. It's often birds in New Zealand. They're off to explore the stars, and they perform actions and sing Waiata along the way as they explore the 9 stars. And this is an example of 9 stars.
Looking at Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, I couldn't help myself but think about the science of stars, and if this was something you wanted to explore with your students, there's a lot of fun. You can, at a really lower, younger level, you can just explore it and discuss it and get excited about some of the beautiful images and some of the words and talk about those. If you want to take it further and start thinking about the formation of planets and stars, then we have a resource for you. So this one is around stars, and this is a really simple activity called a gravity well, but it provides so much opportunity for learning, sometimes about some quite complex ideas. And what we have here is actually just a hula hoop and some lycra and some marbles. So much can go on here around observation, understanding what's going on with gravity, and you can then apply it to things like the formation of planets and stars. So that one's there for you to explore. There's lots of other beautiful things you can learn about stars. If you're wanting to know about navigating by the stars, the hub has lots of resources on there, and there's just some really lovely images that you can find. And I really recommend that, just starting with that with your students, have some images to start that discussion and start them getting curious, asking questions. Kia ora.
The last book in the 7 that I'm sharing today is by Brianne Tapa and Story Hemi Morehouse, published in 2022. It's the story of a family where a koro tells his grandson about Matariki and the importance of letting spirits move on once people have died at Matariki time. And then the boy's grandfather dies, and the boy gathers his family around to release his grandfather's spirit together. And the way it uses Te Reo Māori woven into the English text this time provides no glossary, no footnotes, no glossing in text. It assumes that we will know these words, and it's woven in a very effective way.
So the resources that I've connected with How My Koro Became a Star linked to Maramataka and the phases of the moon, because in that she speaks of waiting for a particular phase to be able to honour her koro. So we've got a resource there that is from Project Mātauranga, and a lovely video there, probably aimed more at older students, but as a kaiako, you might want to watch it to get yourself to understand the background of that. And we also have an article looking at the moon. I wanted to share this just because it had some really nice images available for you to use in your classroom. And so you might talk about, like, we've got names in here in Te Reo Pākehā in English, and then you could look at the kupu Māori for the different phases of our moon, and again acknowledging that that's a regional mātauranga, so there will be differences between different areas. This one also features an absolutely gorgeous video of a young boy sharing how we see the different phases of the moon, which might be a really nice activity for you to do with your students as well, to get those videos and to explore that side of it.
Right. Well, we've gone through the first part, what a picture book is, why I'm interested. Second part, the 7 books, and all the links, the fabulous links Greta's given you. Part 3 is He Wero, and I mean that this is a challenge is often associated with Matariki as well. My challenge to you is, when you're reading books that feature English and Māori, think about how Te Reo Māori words are used in the English texts. How are the 2 languages positioned? Is one given more space than the other? Who's the audience? If you don't give a glossary or a footnote, who's the audience? how did the text and the illustration support the meaning making? What's in the images that isn't in the text? And what do your children notice? Children often notice much more in illustrations than we do as adults, because we've become so attached to text that we often read the text and dismiss the illustration, but children have got eagle eyes and they see things we don't see. And that's all part of the meaning making and the storytelling. So the last question, think about how the use of Te Reo Māori in these books supports the science curriculum. Greta has been showing you possibilities all the way along today.
Thank you, Nicola. Angela has very kindly put out an article looking at creating collections. You'll be able to find the link to all the collections that we have. One of them is looking at Matariki resources. It does not cover currently everything that we have talked about today, but it gives you a good backbone to get started with, particularly including links to those Ministry for the Environment resources. And just a really nice way to hold it all together. And looks like we've got an offer from Angela to create one specifically for us, which will be lovely.
So lots of links and Twitter feeds and things here. We hope you enjoyed today. We hope that you take away lots of ideas to share with your classroom, but also with your colleagues. And we also hope you go and ask your librarian at your school to get these books. They're really good jumping off platforms for talking about Matariki. Stories are how we pass knowledge on, and these stories hold a lot of knowledge and a lot of opportunities for connections outside of the story. So never underestimate a picture book. Probably would be on my gravestone in the end.
I love it.
When it comes to that.
I absolutely love it. And absolutely total that conversation with your librarians. And there are amazing libraries that have whole collections set up for Matariki there for you to access. And really incredible. So thank you so much, Nicola. I have really enjoyed this. Hopefully we have filled everybody's brains with ideas and got you excited about using picture books to explore the language in them and the science ideas that can bounce off of that. We would like to finish with our karakia. Thank you so much to our participants today. We've really appreciated your contribution to our chat. Please do get in touch, and as always, please reach out to the Science Learning Hub on any of our different social media platforms. We would love to hear from you. All right, kia ora, and I'm going to switch back to our karakia.
Tuia I runga, tuia I raro, tuia te ere tangata I a nuku ara, kia puanga kairau, kia matariki a unga nui. Tō matatini me pā ki roto, tō matatini me pā ki wao, kia ora ia te kura, e kura nui, e kura roa, e kura takatū mai ia rongo take take. Ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ā, ka rongo I te a I kāro, I tūārangi te waka eke nei. Ka waka eke te aukai kia tina, ka waka eke te aukai kia toka, ka waka eke te aukai kia uru ora. Witi, wano, tau mai te mauri, aumi e, ui e, tā iki e.